We all know that in the first 4 seasons, the episodes were mainly from stories in the Railway series. Changes would be made throughout them. The majority were mostly unnoticeable, but some were very noticeable for the better or worse. Today, I will be sharing my opinion on 10 episodes I feel that the show did better. Without further ado, let's begin. I know this story never technically existed in the books, but I'm counting it as Blue Bloods of England, which is basically disregarded just to give Rusty a lead. Which I like because, he was the, pretty much the side character of all the stories. Did appear once, occasionally, with an important role, but besides that, he was not that important. The only problem with this episode, which is like everyone else's problem, is the fact that Rusty just casually went on to the mainland, which is why there's a low score on here, and somehow it perfectly lines up with the standard gauge lines. But at the same time, you gotta consider the fact that originally it was just Percy that was talking for like 10 pages. And to make this better, we could just say, you know what, he was not on the mainland. But everything else is perfect. The visuals, the music. All in all, a pretty good story, and if it just had one side change from Rusty to any other Diesel, would have been perfect. This was not a very memorable story, taking place during the middle of Henry's character arc, despite him making one appearance. TV series not only extended this, but gave Henry more of a role. Reason why it's also so low is because the story is very, very basic. Unlike Rusty the Rescue. Had it been memorable and better, it would have been higher. The show had gotten Rusty right. This episode's here because I like the inclusion of Rusty and Harold at the beginning and the end. Also, I like that this episode confirms that the trucks are basically just colorblind. I mean, how else would you mix blue and green? Just something funny, not really much else to talk about. Crash was pretty decent.
Hello everyone, Six Small Wheels here. I've been invited to cover an episode I think is better than its Railway series counterpart. I'm going to be honest, I had a tough time coming up with an episode, because no classic series episodes really jumped out at me. That's when I decided to re-watch the Series 20 adaptations of the small railway engines, and I gotta say, I'm not disappointed. My personal favourite is Tit for Tat. The longer episode format really benefited it, allowing for a subplot about Thomas wanting a picture. People like to complain about too much Thomas in these episodes, and while I kind of agree, I think it was nice to see Thomas interact with his literal creator. Also, the ending is probably my favourite episode ending ever. Every time I watch it, I can't help but crack a smile. That's all from me, folks. Thanks to Ruined Breakfast for having me on, and keep your eyes peeled for my series coming out in 2063 when I stop procrastinating.
I know this technically isn't a Railway series story, just like Rusty to the Rescue, but if you pay close attention, this is basically just Mike's Whistle, Scarlet Railway version, with Peter Sam being Duck, where he's the one with the whistle issues, and Duncan taking Mike, where he was the one that lost the whistle and everything. It would have been interesting to see if this was actually if it was actually Mike's Whistle instead. But I do like this version because it utilizes the older, already created characters, and it does make a good other story, and it's also pretty funny. So yeah. This story seems like it was 100% made for TV. As it's got the intense action, everything that seems a lot better than just on paper being oh, he's moving fast or whatever. No wonder everyone always thinks of this whenever you typically think about the Runaway theme. The action's extremely intense, and regardless if you've ever read the book or not, you're on the edge of your seat the entire time, and it's all in all amazing. The reason why this episode is up here is for a couple reasons. Firstly, the beginning with the truck singing is just classic. I mean, it's better in the US dub because at least George Carlin isn't shouting his lines, but Michelangelos is still really good. The second reason is due to the ultimate suspense at the end and Indiana Jones music ripping Scruffy apart. Hard episode to avoid, especially for rankings such as this. We're slowly starting to close up the list, with number 3 being Ghost Train. This episode is better than the books because of the spooky elements with the music and everything. I also like that the cart of lime was just never on the tracks was just never explained. Makes it seem a lot more eerie or intentional. So yeah. I really wanted to put Flying Kipper at number 1, but I decided against it just because of the fact that there was somehow an episode better than that. But this was one of the best stories in the Railway series alone, and the music with the visuals and the not so comedic version without the Coco being mentioned is just the only things that were better, which take it up a great toll. Trust me to have like 12 Henry songs and put Flying Kipper in number 2, honestly. The only episode that was ever better than Flying Kipper. This is my number 1 favorite episode of all time. With a close second being Flying Kipper, then third being Henry's Forest. But just besides the visuals and music alone, the beginning was a lot better because instead of it just being like, oh, Douglas is now in the other railway, it's just like there's a little conversation between him and Edward talking about scrap, which is actually a pretty decent thing considering they were both actually built in the 19th century. So that was pretty cool. And Indiana Jones and Great Escape are like 2 of the best combinations ever. So yeah, this is 100% the best episode of all time, never going to get changed, regardless of how you think. Alright, so that is this list. Thanks to 6 Small Wheels for helping with this, and thanks for everyone who came to watch this, and have a good one.